without further ado, invite her into the circle of truth, one of my favourite women on this here planet, Claire Fox. Hi, Claire. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. What a nice intro.
Well, you always get top-notch service here, especially when it's deserved. This story about Gail's Bakery is just, to me, it's like one of my favourite stories because it encapsulates everything about the sort of narrow-minded, nasty mindset of certain elements in our society. And this is basically about East Londoners in Walthamstow, London, are getting uppity about a Gail's Bakery being opened there. They kind of said, oh no, it's because it will affect the independent businesses. But I think it's down to two things. Well, first of all, I think it's down to, all of a sudden, what was the privilege of the middle classes where, you know, if there was a Gail's Bakery, you were something special. Your house price would go up and a Lib Dem MP would soon be representing you in Parliament. Has become rather too ubiquitous for the snobs of this world. A bit like the sort of latest Burberry. You know, once upon a time it belonged to posh people and now the great unwashed get to go and buy coffee from there. We can't have it here. That's ghastly. But also, of course, because one of the founders happened to vote Brexit and like free speech. It's just sad, isn't it? These people, what is wrong with them, Claire?
Yeah, well, this is one of the daftest stories in a way, but it's also one of the most sinister. So to be a bit serious about it, because the thing that's fascinating is that Walthamstow, only a few days ago, boasted that it had this huge stand-up to racism demo. They were the epitome of everything that was good in the country. They'd driven single-handedly the riots and the rioters off the streets under the name of anti-racism. And then we kind of discovered that this kind of, the nice brigade, the people who were meant to be treating as heroes, actually have decided that they don't want a Gail's Bakery because they do not agree with the views of one of the co-owners and the founder of the bakery, Luke Johnson. The thing that's remarkable about this is that were various people who objected as well on the basis that people on the board have some links with, wait for it, Israel. So just let's throw in a little bit of anti-Semitism as well, shall we? And just on top of it all. But their main objection seemed to be that Luke Johnson was a Brexiteer. And as to quote somebody, they said, we're soundly remain round here. Right, so talk about the balkanisation of the UK. This is a little enclave that's decided that it's a safe space, that only its own views will be tolerated. They didn't like Luke Johnson's views either on the climate because he thought that potentially some of the climate alarmism was frightening people and was bad for business and bad for individuals who were scaring themselves about unnecessarily. In other words, there's a suite of opinions that means that you're a good, kind person, and there's a suite of opinions which means that you are these days far right, not welcome here, treated with utter contempt. And whereas we've seen that in relation to people who are called far right because of their views on immigration, for example, people disgustingly slurred by those labels. In this instance, they're basically not our kind of people, so they got snobbish about Gail's. Right. Now, I mean, I always thought Gail's was a bit posh.
Yeah, I've never been into Gail's myself. Overpriced and full of yummy mummies.
It looks lovely. Cakes look lovely. I'm not objecting. But I'm just simply saying the idea that Walthamstow, who wants to present itself as the liberator and the good guys, don't like it because it's dragging the area down because of these Brexity views, at the same time as basically saying it's going to ruin the area because we don't want chains.
Right.
So they're basically snobs as well.
Well, exactly. No, I want to pick you up on that, right? Because I've heard it being bandied about, the term, and I think it's a very cleverly framed term, which is luxury ideology. The idea that once upon a time, to show your class, you just had, a new car, or you'd gone on a foreign holiday, or you had the latest phone. But guess what? Finance came along and short-haul flights and Ryanair. So the scroats were allowed to have those things as well. And so what the middle classes do now is adopt a set of beliefs that they think gives them moral rectitude and superiority so they can look down their nose on the ignorant. And frankly, it's the kind of ideological version of keeping up with the Joneses. They're just sort of brainwashed. But actually, there's an element of classism to a lot of this.
I totally agree with you. I mean, that's exactly the point, is they're so posh that they think that Gail's is too common. I mean, you couldn't make it up. But actually, again, to be more serious about the more sinister side, we actually saw last week one of the also a different stand up to racism march, who stopped spontaneously outside of Wetherspoons and started screaming abuse at people who are having a drink on their way to the football.
What?
And Wetherspoons has become, again, I mean, this had the people in Wetherspoons, they were just getting ready to go to the football because, the season started.
Yeah. And
they started screaming, no far right here, stand up, fascists out, Nazis out, and so on and so forth. We saw, I mean, it's a slightly different thing, the protest outside Reform UK's HQ. Also at the weekend, where they were basically saying that Reform is, Nazis, get out, we don't want to. So legitimately, over 4 million people vote for a political party, but it's the wrong kind of party. And so all of these so-called Democrats are actually anti-democratic. And I think we've seen a lot of the cultural boycotts over the last several months in relation to Israel, where people basically don't just say, this is my opinion on Israel or Gaza, which is fine. This is my opinion on Brexit. Fine. That's fine, right? This is even my opinion on what I didn't agree with everything Elon Musk's father said about Muslims, where he was almost implying that they weren't English, but obviously,
they were running 17
tens of thousands of Muslims. Yeah. Tens of thousands of Muslims in this country are British citizens and completely integrated. And it was a bit, but I don't agree. So what you would then do is have a discussion, have an argument. What these kind of boycotters try and do, and with Gail's, they're not even boycotting once it's open, they're trying to stop it even being open, is what they're trying to say is that they want to politically cleanse areas of things that they don't like, remove them without trace. It's both a kind of wimpy safe space, we don't want to hear anything that upsets us, but more sinister, they're basically trying to remove anything that they decide goes against, what their politics is. And that is the worst kind of authoritarian, top-down.
Right. I want to pick you up on that, actually, because you're saying, you're sort of reading my mind before I ask you a question, sort of almost sort of half answered it. Look, when you talked about people shouting far right into a Wetherspoons, that has really peeved me. I feel like I want to go as a one-woman defence service to Wetherspoons now. Don't mess with the people of Wetherspoons. They're my people. I like them. I come from a city that loves a good Wetherspoons. But the point is this, right? They think they're on the right side of history. And how many times in history have we seen this repeated? They're the ones pointing the finger at the working classes, saying you're Nazis. And yet, when you look at every single oppressive regime that's ever happened in history, it has been the comfortable middle classes, the privileged lot who have actually backed the fascistic oppressors, the tyrants, and it's been the working class who stood up for the country.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to overly romanticise the working class, but ordinary people are straightforward, and their views, as we have seen over recent years, are derided as, populists, said it with a sneery tone, that because I've actually got a lot of sympathy with populism, I can't do the sneer.
Right.
But they're kind of like dismissed, right? They're just like, and as you say, dismissed as the type of people who, drink in Wetherspoons. I mean, I didn't think that they would be then saying the type of people who might go to Gail's, but there we go. It's their intolerance stretches in a way that is remarkable to behold. And being on the right side of history implies that anyone who doesn't agree with you is on the wrong side of history, should be banished. And so that is actually the end of democracy in all seriousness. If you cannot have a set of views that are contested and argued over, that's how democratic change occurs. But if you try and ring fence off those people you dislike, you disagree with, not just ring fence them off, but almost put a sort of cordon sanitaire around them, kind of like they are the great unwashed, the diseased, we'll have nothing to do with them. Once you do that, then you don't ever have to engage with them. Yeah. And that is very worrying for those of us who believe in tolerance, regardless of, I can tolerate the middle classes. My goodness, I'm a baroness in the House of Lords, right? I actually try and avoid, whatever my background, being chippy about that.
Yeah.
Right? What I try and do, and what I would urge everyone to do, is to take each other seriously, not put everyone into a blob and say, oh, the working classes or the populist masses or the mob. Actually wouldn't do that with anybody.
Yeah. Claire, you are one of the most sensible women I know. You got a heart of gold and a brain of steel. Claire Fox, the Baroness, ladies and gentlemen, the Baroness of common sense. We love her.